welcome back to the News Hour, on with Bob Chapman, last segment. Bob, I hope listeners realize that members of Congress, senators, they pay attention to what their constituents have to say. That's why it's important to let them know they have a formula. For every comment they get on an issue, they just multiply by a factor to believe that so many other people feel the same way. Big companies do exactly the same thing. If there's enough fear among members of Congress that the kind of mass violence might erupt because the situation continues to deteriorate to the point where it will be so bad that people absolutely will react, that would be the stimulus to get them to do something. Better to give up a little now than, in their minds, possibly giving up everything. So we need to put the fear of God into them, that something has to change. We're not talking about changing the world. We're talking about making a terrible system a good bit fairer than it is today, and we darn well better do it, or else.
Well, I think you're absolutely right, and that's why we have this preposterous figure of 213, because people have barraged Congress, and they're more afraid of the constituents and others who are writing to them, and that factor you talked about, than they are the contributors at this point. And that's why you got to continue to badger everybody in Congress and say, I want this out of committee. I want it passed. I want the Fed done away with. We want to see what these people are doing. We don't want any favoritism and insider trading. We don't want a revolving door between Wall Street and the Treasury Department and many other branches of government. It's got to end. And that will be step one. Step two is getting rid of the Fed. Step three is getting trade legislation. And I'll tell you, we can make it if we can do that. If we don't do it, then all I can say is, Congress, you're on Madame Lafarge's list.
Oh, indeed. Bob, you and I remember going back post-World War II, and we were old enough to remember things. Oh, when I went to work in 1960, history of this country going back to the 19th century, new generations economically were bedded over the previous ones. That continued for generations, for a number of generations. It all ended in the 1970s. And ever since then, we've had programs on that. We'll have another one coming up in July. Ever since then, the standard of living of people in this country has gone down, inflation adjusted. That alone is a terrible situation. And then the exploitation by greater taking advantage, the terrible bubble economies that we inflated in the 1990s, in the new millennium years, and now we've come to what we face now, the potential of a depression that will exceed the worst of the 1930s. None of this had to happen, but it did. This is the time for major reform.
Well, I agree, and we talk about that each time that we publish the International Forecaster, which is twice a week, and you can get free introductory copies to that email edition or our hard copy, and all you have to do is go to theinternationalforecaster.com, theinternationalforecaster.com, or call toll-free 800-375-4188. That's 800-375-4188, and we'll send you out either a hard copy, which was published twice a month, or the email copy, which comes out twice a week. It runs around 35 or 40 pages.
Bob, I got to cut you off. Absolutely. I read it. You have invaluable material in your newsletter. I strongly recommend it. Bob, I thank you very much for coming on. Again, my apologies for my phone going dead.
Oh,
and I hope we stuff happens, as Rumfeld used to say.
That's right.
I hope we can do this again.
We will, anytime you want.
I'm going to get my phone fixed today, so I have a landline tomorrow. Join us
okay.
then.
With recent